Here we go, guys. My name's Eve Kid. I'm on the channel today. I want to talk about something. I want to talk about why Sega has been re-releasing the wrong games. Now, for those of you that don't know, Sega has a tendency to re-release games from their Sega Mega Drive / Sega Genesis console on basically every new generation of console, including mobile devices, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. And I want to kind of discuss why I'm a little bit disappointed at Sega for that, and why I kind of expect Sega to do more. Now, for those who know, Sega has put out several different systems over the decades. Obviously, they pulled out a hardware in to early 2000s after the launch of PS2. But some of the systems Sega released will include the Sega SG-1000, Sega Master System, Sega Game Gear, Sega Mega Drive / Sega Genesis, Sega Pico, Sega Dreamcast, Sega CD, Sega 32X, and Sega Saturn. That's a lot of systems. Now, for those who don't know, Sega has a tendency to re-release the games from the Mega Drive because the Mega Drive was seen as their golden years, the years that was on top and they couldn't be beat. But as we all know, Sega did fall from grace after the Dreamcast launch. Dreamcast was a great system, but it failed to catch on in the market and ended up, leading to being the last Sega console. Now, what's my problem? Well, first of all, what we've got to realize is Sega hasn't really re-released many of their games that are outside of the Mega Drive. So we do know that they did release some Dreamcast games on the Xbox 360, and they released some Dreamcast games on the original Xbox. But besides that, we haven't really seen much. So what are they doing? So Shenmue 1 and 2, for instance, are Dreamcast games. It'd be nice to see them on a modern system alongside Shenmue 3 as like a collection of Shenmue, or maybe even remastered. The Dreamcast is quite an easy system to emulate compared to something like Sega Saturn. So hopefully Sega does work on actually bringing those games to to new consumers, because I reckon that'd be quite fun. Sega Game Gear is an 8-bit system. The controls are quite basic. D-pad and A and B. They should be able to run on any modern system, plus systems like the Evercade or the Atari VCS. Right? Obviously, we know we'll probably never see Sega games on the Atari VCS, but if we ever do get to see Sega games on Evercade, hopefully they start with Game Gear as well as roll out collections of Game Gear games to Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo platforms, as well as PC, so more people can experience games like Axe Battler, Sonic Drift, and many other games that Sega made that aren't widely available. And then obviously you got Sega Saturn, which is in my opinion the worst one to do because Sega Saturn didn't really have the best games. It was sort of the first nail in Sega's coffin because Sega Saturn kind of was what kind of started Sega's decline. Well, obviously there were systems before that like the 32X and the Sega CD, but the Sega Saturn was like the first major console Sega release, which kind of flopped compared to its competitors because that sold like 9 million units, whilst the N64 sold for like 33 million, and the PlayStation sold over 100 million. So yeah. Then we have the Master System. The Master System is an oddity to me. It was one of Sega's first consoles, and yet they somehow don't really release a lot of games. Now, obviously, a lot of the games were obviously games that were put on both the Mega Drive and the Master System. But for games that were made just for the Master System, it'd be nice to see those games re-released as well. You know, as well as stuff like Sega arcade games and games from the Sega SG-1000, which I do believe they did re-release one of them, a game called Girls Garden, on a Sega on a 3DS game. And personally, to me, I kind of wish Sega had its own PC platform, its own PC subscription service, where you could like similar to get Xbox Game Pass, where you could access all of Sega's games. Obviously, will we ever see that? I don't know. Sega doesn't have its own game launcher, but if they ever did do one, I kind of hope they obviously had the option where you can just play all of it. Now, what's my opinion on this? Well, Sega's not re-releasing a lot of their old games, largely in my opinion, because of a lot of their systems being seen as failures. The Master System was outside by the NES. The Game Gear was destroyed by the Game Boy. The Saturn was destroyed by the PlayStation. The Dreamcast was destroyed by the PlayStation 2. The Mega Drive was outsold by the Super Nintendo, but people knew what the Mega Drive was. People heard the Mega Drive. People saw the Genesis. They're like, oh yes, I want this console. Plus, their biggest games like Sonic the Hedgehog came from the Mega Drive. So it kind of feels like to me, Sega is looking at the Mega Drive as like the only worthwhile part of their history to try and profit off of, which is I think is kind of sad because I kind of feel like something like Game Gear, releasing those games on a collection, whether it be on PC, Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, or even just making a deal with Blaze Entertainment to put a load of their games on the Evercade from the Game Gear and the Master System, I kind of feel like that could be a huge thing for Sega, and it could test the waters for them. to see if people are actually interested in their older games. Obviously, with inflation and the prices of retro games skyrocketing, it's harder to collect for these systems. So Sega should re-release the games so people who want to experience these games can. A lot of developers should do that. A lot of developers should look at their libraries and decide, hey, we should re-release this so more people can play it. So more people can play it and enjoy it. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Do you think Sega's been re-releasing the wrong games or from the wrong systems? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. And I'll see you next one. Peace.